And hi, everyone. My name is Evgeny Shvarov. I'm the head of InterSystems developer ecosystem, and I'm happy to welcome you on InterSystems kickoff for the programming contest on InterSystems IRIS Globals. And dear contestants, developers, we suggest you such a wonderful topic of globals. And first of all, I want to say a few words to introduce it. What is it? And to be honest, this is the heart of persistent engine of InterSystems IRIS. And it's also known as sparse indexed arrays that help to persist data in InterSystems IRIS. And also it is a persistence engine that helps to implement different data models and indexes of any kind. And we invite you to contribute open source applications that will open some other doors for globals and for your imagination to be in your implementations. And speaking of the multimodal nature of globals and of IRIS, thanks to globals, we can mention that InterSystems IRIS goes with several data models supported out of the box, at least with object data model, and so InterSystems IRIS has an API that allows you to operate and to persist data with considering it as an object. Also, InterSystems IRIS provide you the JDBC or DBC and other APIs to work with InterSystems IRIS as a SQL database, as a relational database, and also you can deal with InterSystems IRIS as a key value database engine. And today, the agenda will be the following. So we will share with you, like expose a little bit the concepts, how you can implement your own examples of multimodal approach, like different data models implementations or functional indexes implementations. And also we'll go through technical bonuses that we suggest you in this contest. And we will be happy to answer all the questions you will come up here, because we have product managers from InterSystems on the call, and several outstanding engineers from our company from different parts of the world. Thanks for joining. And first, I invite Daniel Kutac to touch the data model concept of globals. And so, Daniel, please.
Yeah, you have to tell me how can I become presenter and how can I share the screen, if it's ever possible.
Okay. So, you should see the share screen button on the.
Unfortunately, here we go. Yeah, it was well hidden. Yeah, good. So I think it should be this one. So what I would like to show you is an application. Now you should see it. Yeah.
Yes, we see your screen. Yep.
Okay. So this is actually a former student project which has its origins over 10 years ago. And the idea of the project was, how can we use then Cache, now it's running on IRIS, to organize data into triplets. Triplets are scientific concept to help to structure the information on World Wide Web, on websites. And it's the concept that helps the machines to understand what the text means. So it comes with triplets, which consist of a subject and object and a property which is joining these two together. So what you can see on this screen is a cache server page, which is one of our technologies. And you can see there is a query. This query is written in Sparkle query language. So it's similar to SQL, but it's not SQL at all. But you can see I have some prepared other variants of the query. And if you run the query, oops, need to log in again. You see the results. And what you see here is a tabular representation of the data. So the data here are representation of triplets. So I can see a subject and the list of its properties and the values of those properties based on this Sparkle query statement. The advantage and the main idea behind is that there's no formal description of the objects in the standard cache or IRIS data dictionaries. All these objects are abstract and they have a very specific storage layer, which is based on globals. There is no SQL, there is no traditional SQL and traditional storage layer, but everything is organized in a global structure. And with this application, it just shows a lot of information about, I need to get back to proper one, about the subject. So if I select, for instance, this one, I should hopefully see the object graph. Yeah? So this is one of the presentations. And now I will switch a little into the globals. So all this functionality is available because someone has designed pretty clever structure of global. So what you see here, this is a standard global, which is coming with this caret side character. So everyone who is aware with the notion of global data structures knows that this is just a global, and the global has its nodes which identify individual data entries, and there is a data structure here. And if you are familiar with our standard persistent classes and the way they store the data, you will spot that there is a lot of list build structures, but here there's even more list builds than with standard storage, because we have to store the information about each property of an object in a self-describing way, because we don't have any data dictionary, we do not compile the persistent class. Everything is self-contained within the information about the property. So the property describes itself. It comes with the value, with the data type, and it also tells if it's a single value property or it may have multi-value and so. So the main difficulty with this particular semantic web project was to figure out how to organize data into globals so it works efficiently and it's capable of storing these very flexible structures. Because if you look at the class definitions, I'll try to bring them. Just a little moment. Unfortunately, some comments are in Czech, but what you can see, there is, with two exceptions of %UID and %about and type of, all other properties are dispatched dynamically. So there is no classic data dictionary through persistent classes. So all properties are just determined at the runtime, and they are what they are and what they mean is determined from the property value, which is stored together with the type information in the global. And so everything is determined at the runtime dynamically. And that's not only it. It's this particular project is not only about the globals. It's also about the Sparkle query language. So the student who was doing some part of the code, he was also creating or subclassing or creating a very specific result set class. And so everything was programmed to run the result set and to run the query. In fact, this project was also using code generator. So whenever someone was typing a statement like here, when the statement is executed, it's actually analyzed, parsed, and in a similar way that we do with standard SQL queries, it was compiled into a set of code lines. And so it was generating the code that is translating this Sparkle statement into set of object script commands. So if you need, or if you would like to see some more information about this project, I think in the invitation there was a link to one of the projects which is available at GitHub. But you can also look at this GitHub, and I have some English written comments about the project if you are interested. So this is the documentation which describes the project. But the takeaway to take for you is that globals are very powerful data structures, and you don't have to stick with globals only in this particular context. Your innovation should be about thinking about the new ways of organizing the data within globals and then exposing it in a new way, not necessarily in the way that we do it already. If you use existing storage and use existing tools like web pages or Python or different languages, it's all fine. But if you come with something that's not yet in the product, or it's there but maybe not efficiently implemented, that's what we're seeking for. At least that's what I would give points if I was to evaluate your solutions. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dan. Are there any questions to Daniel? And participants on the call, you feel free to just turn on mic and ask your questions. Because this call is intended to make it clear. Yes, please don't hesitate. And you also can use chat for questions, for typing questions. Okay, Daniel, thank you so much. And yes, we will share this project to the participants, and also that Daniel mentioned that there is a graph implementation. It is not finished, but it performs something. It does something. So it's on an open source. You feel free to fork it and implement it to the end. And with this, I invite Timothy Leavitt to provide yet another example on how you can use the power of globals in this context. It's about functional indexes. It's a really powerful approach. And so, Timothy, can you? The floor is yours, please.
All right, I'll share my screen. We'll look a little bit at the class reference for functional indices, related %SQL.abstract find, and then look through a couple different examples.
Okay.
What I'll plan to do is probably in the developer community discussion, and I'll take over sharing my screen.
Okay, should we ask Daniel? Okay, yes, we can see your screen.
Yep. So what I'll plan to do is just post links to all of this in the developer community thread regarding the webinar after we wrap up. So just to provide a little bit of background, I think we've already talked about how globals are kind of the underpinnings of all of InterSystems technology, really. And I think that what I would like to see in this contest is things that would not be better implemented using just plain old classes or object relational, but that really either get that additional performance boost of using globals directly, or provide a tool that you can use without using globals directly from more typical modern best practices object script. So I would think, if I'm just starting out building a new application, I'm probably not going to be using globals directly unless there's some really specific reason to do so. And one of those specific reasons would be using functional indices. So what this allows you to do, as you know, if you have a unique index, for example, you just have an index defined and it has the unique keyword, you get a bunch of auto-generated methods like exists or open or delete. What functional indices do is you define an index as some particular class that extends %library.functionalIndex. And that class implements a bunch of methods to say, what do you do with this custom index type when a record is inserted in the table that includes it, or updated or deleted? How do you clear out the index? And then there's also this find method. So what you would typically do, and what we normally do with indices when a record is inserted or updated or deleted, is we update some global that has additional information that we can iterate over for quicker queries. And then under the hood with a functional index, you just end up doing the same kind of thing, except it's highly customized and ideally encapsulated within the functional index. So we'll get to some examples of this in a minute, but at a basic level, you didn't implement in your functional index class, insert, update, and delete index, and then typically find to say, how do we actually use this index to look for something? Find will return an instance of of a class that extends %sql.abstractFind. And generally, I would say the class documentation for these is good, and that should be the first place you look if you're going to implement these. The examples we're about to look at are also just helpful for reference. I'm not gonna demo these. I'm just gonna talk through some examples. So in %sql.abstractFind, there's the %find operator in SQL, and generally this looks like iterating over a bitmap index, and often under the hood, actually using something that has a similar structure to a bitmap index would be a good approach from a performance perspective for these. So I feel like it might be good to just jump to an example of this, because it all seems very abstract and academic until you actually do that. So as an example, in the package manager, we have an index that specifically indexes semantic versions. So kind of the motivating case would be, we have a table that has a bunch of packages defined, or has information about a bunch of packages, which have a name and a semantic version. And if we want to be able to say, what are all of the packages in this table that have a semantic version matching 0.x? This sort of functional index would allow us to answer that question very efficiently. So
Tim,
we can see that, yes.
Just a moment. If it is an option to increase the font a little bit, or because it's hard, yeah, that's
sure.
much better. Thank you.
Yeah. So the SQL syntax would be %inset or %find, and then this is the name of a stored procedure that we get as a member of the index, and we pass as arguments the name of the package, a semantic version expression, and then maybe some additional hints like we want snapshot versions and/or we want pre-release versions, for example. This is our functional index class. It defines a find method that returns an instance of a related %sql.abstract find implementation. And you can see that it's in the same same package. And I'll post links to this in the developer community announcement. So find returns an instance of a %sql.abstract find subclass that'll actually find the matches and iterate over them. We have methods defined to insert, update, and delete. And just so that we're not having the same global name everywhere, there's some helper methods that are defined in here that say where should the index be. And if we, so this, so we figure out where the index location for the related persistent class is, and we just say it's under the index name, same as a normal index defined in object script. And then we generate the insert, update, and delete methods based on that location, ultimately to call other methods defined in this class to actually do the delete or insert or update, which gets the global node to insert, update, or delete for the data that we're putting in there, and then yeah. So on the other side, our %sql.abstract find implementation, we pass in the name of the package, the semantic version expression, and whether we want pre-release or snapshot versions. And then we have an instance of this class that is actually used as the query executes. So this under the hood, we get the global to iterate over. We use Q length and Q subscript to ultimately, this could be a little bit more efficient. We end up iterating over the whole global, and we could specifically target a section of it. So this is what the global structure looks like used for this index. We have the different parts of the semantic version, and then metadata about it. And that's what we iterate over, and you can see in next item how we do that.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of how this is actually used, then in a class that uses it, we have an index named semver on the package name and semantic version of this type. That's the subclass of %library.functionalIndex. And then we have a property associated with it that is just kind of required as part of the implementation of the functional index. And then when we actually go to use it, it just follows the same pattern as here, where we have the name of the table that includes the index, and then the index name find, and then we pass in these arguments. There's also a stored procedure, a class query in here, where the class queries aren't inherited the same way that methods are. So if you have an index type that defines a class query, it isn't inherited that way. At least it wasn't when I originally wrote this. And this just helps iterate over semantic versions in proper semantic versioning order, which is different from just a typical collation order. So that's one example. Just to point to some other examples, we have a few projects on GitHub. This uses %library.functionalIndex and %sql.abstractFind to support searching on latitude, longitude windows, or within a radius, which is really cool. I haven't actually used it because I haven't had a use case for it, but it's another example. This search index just takes the index name and will use the find method from that index. So I think there'd actually be an equivalent syntax for that. But generally, %find, the right-hand side needs to return, it could be any stored procedure that returns an instance of a %SQL.abstract_find subclass. And another example, this uses, I think this uses some external library to process images, and then has at least an SQL abstract find no %library.functional index and SQL abstract find implementation for matching images, which is another really cool example. And I didn't write this, so I can't really go into the code in detail, but I'll provide links to all these if you want to see some examples for inspiration. Something that we don't have on the Open Exchange yet that I'm aware of that would be interesting as an implementation of these things would be an index that, so suppose you have a table where there's kind of a tree structure in it. Like you could imagine a table of employees where there's a manager and everybody has a manager up to maybe the CEO who is his own manager, say. And if you wanted to say, what are all of the records in the hierarchy, you could imagine an SQL abstract find implementation that does that, either using an existing bitmap index or using a custom index with %library.functional index that is updated based on data changes to properly reflect the hierarchy going in either direction, or maybe just everything related if you have multiple trees within the same table. So that, if someone implemented that, that would be my top vote. Probably, unless something really pops up.
Thanks, Tim. I think you want to provide a comment that there is a challenge and task like that.
Yep.
Actually, thank you so much for describing all the caveats of all the, like, not caveats, because literally it looks very simple that one can just implement all these methods you've shown to have a functional index. And actually, I remember the project that is displayed now, this image index demo. It really lets you sort like clothes upon the color. So because of this functional index, and color has been calculated by some external library, yes, from the image. Thank you, Tim. So any questions to Timothy on any questions just regarding functional index and maybe implementing your own data models with globals and InterSystems IRIS? Just don't hesitate to raise your hand or just turn on the mic and speak loudly. And also chat is in your disposal for any types of questions. And also, I'm really glad to see Robert in a yellow hat this meeting. So maybe it symbolizes the starting spring. I don't know. So
yes, Robert. Spring is arriving. Yeah, indeed.
Okay, it's a spring indeed. Thank you. So there are no questions so far. I think all these tough tasks are very much clear to the audience. Okay, great. And as mentioned, we will provide all the links to repositories on the bonuses page and in the announcement of this video too, because there will be a recording. You will be able to see it later, to watch it later. And there is another interesting task, and actually it's also a technical bonus in this contest. It's usage of a data move function, and I invite product manager of InterSystems, Benjamin Debo, to shed some more light on this. So Benjamin, can you?
Sure. Thank you, Evgeny.
Jump in. Thank you.
Yeah, well, when we were preparing for this webinar, there were already a couple of really exciting examples that were floated, and most of those were about developing something brand new, such as a new data model or a new type of index. Those are extremely interesting, of course, and I agree with the example that Tim gave. A hierarchical search functionality would be cool if you can make it work properly. But there's also a lot of our customers out there that already have big databases with huge globals in there, globals measuring terabytes at a time, and managing those is perhaps also an area where there's an opportunity for your contest submission. And specifically, as Evgeny pointed out, data move might be one of the lower level building blocks that you could base your solution on. So what data move does is actually fairly simple. It moves data. It moves data from one database to another database, and it does that by allowing you to specify a global or a specific range of subscripts for that global, and then it moves that data physically to the other database. But the system remains live while that operation is taking place. So it's a really smart piece of technology, but it operates at that global level, and it at the end of the process, you have a global mapping or a subscript level mapping, and the requested data is in the other place. It might be interesting to, for example, build a layer around that is aware of how a table looks like, so that you can talk to your tool in terms of tables rather than in terms of globals. Or you could have a utility that helps you to manage your subscript level mappings and keep them organized if you're working across a cluster of different systems, where it would matter that they all are in sync, of course. So many of these things might be stuff that you or your partners have already developed solutions for. I know of a couple of those, and there's also quite a few projects on our own IRIS roadmap that are brewing and that are forthcoming. But rather than just have you wait for those, I'd be thrilled to see some submissions that play this area of really big globals and helping the management and operations thereof, and see if we can learn a few things, if those roadmap items we're working on are actually helping you solve the problems that you can think of today. So that's another open offer or invitation for another area of globals to look into for you.
Thanks, Benjamin. Any questions on this? So, okay, anyway, so you're so invited, so welcome to use yet another nice feature of InterSystems IRIS. Very helpful, and we invite you to add some more usability or maybe some other use cases into this. Okay, so again, I welcome you to ask questions out loud or in the chat. And while we are waiting your questions, I'll go through the whole technical bonuses we have for this contest. Can you see my screen? Yep. Okay, and we went through several bonuses already. And first was the data model implementation. For this, you will get 5 expert bonuses. And we invite you to implement the API of any data model existed, like columnar store, time series, graph. And we provide you several examples that what Daniel said, and there is another implementation of IRIS graph or links will be provided here. Also, there is another approach that we invite you to follow, is to mimic some other database that like MongoDB or Redis, so there are plenty of them. That the application will think that it works with, for example, with Mongo, but in fact it works with IRIS with no any change. This is a great, nice exercise tool. And we also invite you to to put some effort and idea into the data model implementation, that it will not be like, let's say, like trivial, right? Because with globals, it's very easy to make your own database. Just introduce an API, CRUD functionality, and you can name it a data model. But we are looking for something like a working and interesting examples here, really. And functional index implementation was covered by Timothy. Thank you, Tim. For this you will get 5 points. Data move implementation, 3 points. Also, we invite you to use embedded Python heavily. So anyway, heavily. So we suggest you as a language of choice, because the combination of Iris and Python can really give you a lot of powerful points. As always, we will give you some points for the usage of Docker containers, because it's a benefit for everyone. It's so easy to run a repository with Docker and actually contribute to it. And ZPM package manager is also very welcome. And we'll collect 2 extra points if you introduce your application and solution in the form of ZPM package. Online demo are always welcome, and there is a way how to introduce it to your app. And as always, we encourage you to contribute articles and videos. And yes, still you can collect 1 point if you consider use object script in your application. You can get 1 point if you will not see no bugs because of object script code quality linter. Any questions about bonuses? No questions, so nothing very much surprising. Okay then. So also one point here that as I said, globals is the heart of InterSystems IRIS, really, right? And sorry, and there are a lot of how can I stop sharing? Actually, I'm not sure. And there are a lot of different implementations of usage globals in OpenExchange already, and you're welcome to submit it and participate with it in this contest. But we encourage you introduce new, and actually we will new applications, and also we welcome to submit solutions that we already did previously, but with some significant enhancements and with new features, or with a new quality. And and this should be like, this new quality should be clear, I would say. Okay. Any questions so far? So if there are no questions, we will welcome you to start to join the competition. So there will be 2 weeks of, we will have 2 weeks to implement your solution with globals and with all these tasks set up. Actually, stay tuned with the contest page. We will introduce some more challenges and ideas for your implementation. And as always, there will be a voting week where you will not be able to submit a new application, but you are welcome to fix bugs and maybe add some more content and introduce some more quality to the solution.
Hi, Evgeny. I've got one quick question.
Sure.
So the bonus points, I was just wondering how they reflect the overall number of points for the competition. So let's say I had an idea that didn't quite fit some of these bonus areas. You know, is it still worthwhile pursuing something that's you know of a slightly different slant?
Yeah, maybe I will. Can you see my screen, right?
Yeah.
So I will. This is actually our 18th or 19th contest on Open Exchange, and I will introduce a bit how it works. And so we have a contest here, and we can go, like, for example, to history, like, for example, the Python contest that we had in February. And here you can see two categories. If you can see my screen, experts and community. So for experts, we invited 10 experts from InterSystems employers that are very related to the concept of globals, and some of them you can see here joined in this call, like Timothy, Tim Leavitt, Benjamin DeBoer, Joel Solon, Joel, and others, and Edward Lebedyuk. And these gentlemen will have an option to vote for the solutions, and this will add expert points. And each expert can vote for any of 3 applications in, like, first, second, third place, and this will give more, less and less points, expert points. And here you can also see bonuses, and bonuses add extra points, expert points too. And there is also a community category, community competition, where we invite all the members of developer community to vote for the applications of their choice, right? And again, every developer community member can vote for any of the applications of choice. So I hope I answered the question. So we have several questions in the chat. So if I answered the question, is it okay?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll probably have a follow-on question if I can ask.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I haven't been involved in the other competitions before, so it's kind of interesting to start. So I have got an idea, but it's not necessarily a library or a framework. You know, I think some of the ones that I've seen, they seem to sort of lead into maybe some code that can be recycled. My idea is perhaps more to do with how you would use globals in a sort of fast iterative working practice. So it'd be like a demonstration of how globals could be used for prototyping, for instance. So I've got an interesting idea around doing that. Is that something, you know, that's of interest, you know, or should somebody be focusing more on libraries and frameworks?
Absolutely. We will be happy to see libraries, frameworks, and end-to-end applications too that shows some value, some usage of globals. The only requirement is that you really deal with globals, like with set, get, and like kill operations. Via object script, embedded Python, or any API, native API like Node.js, Python, Java, .NET. This is the only requirement. Another requirement is that you use InterSystems IRIS Community Edition, and also this should be an open source.
Okay.
Okay, let's go through questions in the chat. For some reason, I don't see them. So can someone help me with questions in the chat? So do we have any? All right.
Yeah. I have a question concerning the online demo. I recently experienced several times that it just was dead, just because of too many data, whatever, some bug inside. And I found there's no way to restart the container, what I can do if I do it locally, but I have no way to restart the container on the server.
Tu m'entends?
Guillaume, we are hearing you.
Yeah. I asked yesterday, I talked to Dimitri and to say, okay, yeah, you have to upload it again. My problem is I don't know when someone is just breaking it. So, yeah, what should I do?
Robert,
Some kind of reset would be a great feature at that point. Probably not immediately, but at a longer side, if you want to keep, I have seen other demos that have probably the same issue, just went out of whatever and don't respond anymore.
Yes, there probably could be an issue with demos because, as you know, we are using Google Run technology that gives you the way to like deploy in a one document, just that will just add the name of the application that will be added to the domain of demo.community.intersystems.com. If this doesn't work, for now the solution is just to introduce a new name, and we will clean up the previous. So please, if demo doesn't work for you now, please don't hesitate to reach us out in Discord to speed up the reaction. So yeah, so we will be committed to help with to solve the technical issues.
Yeah, fine. Since the thing I have built has a good chance to just to generate millions of records in the global, and if it runs out of space, it just doesn't react anymore. You don't see a log, you just see nothing. It just doesn't. It's just dead. And if I then reload it again, of course it works. But yeah, how should I see when it's necessary? I try to build in a kind of automatic restart, which works excellent in Docker. I run it down, my Docker starts fresh. It's all fine. Well, but not here. Okay. So in a normal Docker, I have not the problem. I just run it down, restart it, and well, the point is to clean up the database at that point. But you should know it before, if it's just that. Often it could be
maybe. Thanks, Robert. Maybe it's a use case for like ICM that can monitor the load of the instance, how many disk space you have, and maybe trigger some deployment of automation. But it's a good point. Maybe we could do something with our DevOps script that runs this. Thanks. Let's follow up on this in Discord with our DevOps engineer.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So now I see chat. Okay. Yuri suggests the new bonus. So if the developer set up in the first week plus 1 point. Yuri, thank you so much. Actually, we are not able to change the game when the game started. So because you will kill us, all the participants. So first hate us, then destroy us in the words and on the community. But we will definitely consider something for the next time. And you know, we're continuously working on making the fair model, and any ideas are always welcome. So yeah, you know, we know that you are creative, so don't hesitate. There are a lot of comments. I just anything I missed with the questions? I see Guillaume asks about data frame to Google for vector. Yeah. Okay, so I think it is answered. Anyway, If you have any last questions, please go ahead. But if not, I think we're good to start the competition, right? So, okay, let's start 2 weeks of new globals contest, and we are looking forward to see your exciting, as always, contributions to InterSystems developer ecosystem. So, have a great 3 weeks, and as Robert mentioned, when spring has started, so happy spring and good luck.
Thanks, Evgeny.
Good luck to everyone. Bye-bye.
Yes,
Bye.
bye.